Hello, good afternoon. It's Monica from Life is Art, and this is the Sunday 3:30 p.m. demo on the summer vacation road trip online crop. I'm just pulling up my video on the side so I can make sure everything's where it should be. We had a lovely afternoon chatting and crafting, getting things done. Everybody was busily working away. Ooh, there we go. Got my video going. You can always tell when the video comes on because it gets really loud all of a sudden. Because I had my volume turned up for chat and craft. All right, so this afternoon we are going to be taking a look at a shaker card, and we're going to be using this stamp of the month. So when you see me type in the initials SOTM, that is the stamp of the month. And so our stamp of the month for July is called Voice of the Sea, which really works well with our crop theme and the fact that we are visiting the beach today on our road trip. So we have hit the, what all have we done? We have done landmarks. We have done camping. We have done amusement parks, you know, some of the typical stops along the way on a road trip, and we're ending our road trip at the beach because, you know, beach is a good destination to finish up on. And so that really works well with our stamp of the month, Voice of the Sea. I love it's got this cutest turtle and fish and crab and a seagull and then some underwater things and some very nice sentiments. Hello, thanks, time to relax. The voice of the sea speaks to the soul, sending good vibes your way. And so we're going to be using that today for our shaker card. We're also going to be using the circle shaker window thin cuts. Okay, so I've cut using this backing piece as well as this frame. So that's already been done ahead of time. We're also going to be doing some coloring, some fussy cutting, and then assembling our shaker all together. So let's get started because our coloring and everything is going to take us a minute or two. So we have some white daisy here, and I'm going to use my intense black ink because we are going to be doing that coloring. And I'm going to stamp up the fish. I thought this would be kind of cool to have our little fish. So stamp them there. And I had somebody ask me about what this was that's over here. This is the back side of a Versamat, which is an excellent stamping spot. So this is the front of the Versamat, and this is the back of the Versamat. And people were chatting about it during Chat and Craft, because that's what we do. And they were saying that they really like using the Versamat and that having two of them for when you're doing a double layout. So you don't have to keep switching things back and forth, which is a great idea. And I highly recommend that. But when you're working on things where you're just stamping and assembling, you can flip one of them over and have that as your stamping area. And yeah, then you don't even need the foam out of the stamp sets. You don't have to keep pulling the foams out because you've got a gorgeous surface here. So I'm also going to take the stamp that has the shells and the coral and the seaweed, and I'm going to stamp that up too. And stamp it on there like so. Lovely. Okay, that's all for that for now. And we want to do some coloring. So I have my Spectrum Noir Tri-Blend markers here. And I don't want to take a lot of time to do coloring, but we're gonna get it done. So I'm starting out with the Tan Blend, the lightest version of it, opened first. And I'm just gonna quickly color my shell. That's right here. And then I'm going to switch to the mid, and I'm going to do a bit of shadowing inside the shell and on the little rings of the shell. And then I'm going to flip to the dark and do that last little bit of shadow inside there and a few little speckles. And that's it. That's all for that one. I'm going to also grab my ice gray And I'm going to start with the lightest color, and I'm going to color these little stones that are under the water. And go to the mid, add a little bit of shading, and then the dark, just a shade at the bottom and under where this little starfish is. That's easy peasy. And then we've got our little starfish. So let's grab our coral blend. And I'm going to start with the light. You can see a pattern here. You just kind of start with the light and work your way through the colors. And it's super simple, very forgiving. And there we go. And then let's add some mid, kind of all just sort of scribble where all those little dots and things are. And then the darkest one, we can kind of do some shading with that along there. And maybe a little bit in the center. Done. And then let's also take our pale pink blend. And we're going to start with the mid on this one. We're not going to go light. We're just going to start with the mid. And I'm going to color in the coral. And the trick with the coral, I think, is just to kind of draw down the lines of the coral. Because you're going to have to, you know, they're all kind of nubbly and knobbly, you know. So it's easiest just to sort of draw down them. Or like, draw. You're not coloring, you're kind of drawing. But as you're drawing, it's filling in the little bits of coral. And just get it all filled in. And then we can take the darkest bit and we can add anywhere where you see kind of extra shading. You can add in some of the darker coral to create some shadows. Just like that. And maybe around the shell. Lovely. And then for our seaweed, we've got our dull green blend. Gonna start with the light, and again, you're just kind of drawing lines down it. Go to this one. It kind of twists and turns like that. And just fill it in, and then jump to the mid, and we'll add a little bit more twisty turny goodness happening here. We can kind of put a little darker at the bottom. And then there's also the darkest little bit, and we can fill in some little shadows and just kind of, I like to kind of like just drag it sort of spotty. So it's not, you know, making a solid line. And there, we've done that. Then let's move over to this one, and I'm going to grab the coral shades like I used for this one. I'm going to use that for the coral on this one. And yeah, I'll start with this light one first. And isn't that great? We're doing coral with coral shades. Coral shades? No, coral blend. Sorry. There's two different ones. This is the coral blend. And just, this is done just the right width. That the width of the marker kind of fills it all in. It makes it a little bit handy. And you know what? Since I started, I haven't even looked up to see if anybody's watching. Hello, Sue. Nice to see you're watching. And Karen's here. Good morning. Good morning. Who else is here? Heather's here. Oh, Robin, so sorry you don't feel well. I hope you get better soon. Who else is here? Everybody's popping on. Hey, Michelle, and Lisa's here. Awesome. Okay. Sorry, I wasn't saying hello to anybody because I wasn't paying attention. I was so busy with my coloring. So we'll just finish that, and then let's also grab the mid color, and we'll add just a little touch here and there, just to say we did. It doesn't even have to have a reason why. We'll just put a little touch here and there, kind of a little extra under the fish, because that would be in the shadow. And there we go. That's it. Now, for our fish, we're going to do a few different colors. I'm going to grab the lightest ice blue color here and give him a little bit of ice blue on his face, like that. And then maybe even a little bit on his little fin here. And this little fin here. And then maybe some pale pink. I'm kind of making this like a tropical-y fish. So he can have all sorts of different colors. Pale pink down on his belly. And then maybe some yellow. Let me see. I want the light yellow, I think. We'll do some yellow in the middle, and I'm just kind of scribbling it on there. Look at that. Look at that skill. We're just scribbling it right on there. And then how about we go to the coral, but we're going to go to the darkest and add, now I'm going to turn it for this so I can see where I'm going. We're going to add some dark coral along the scales and fins here. And I'm doing it kind of like line drawing. So I'm just doing like sketchy lines. It's a little bit sketchy. All the way around. Like so. And there we go. There's our little tropically fish. I might add a little bit darker pink just under his belly there. Like that. There we go. Looking good. Okay, now the trick with these is we're going to need to fussy cut them. And I know you're getting used to seeing me fussy cutting things, aren't you? It just seems to be matter of course. Now, these ones I actually kind of want to do close cutting. You know, usually I leave a halo, but this time I'm going to try and follow the line. And when you're following the line, you want to go as close as you can to the line without trimming the line off. And that's sometimes a delicate kind of balance. But I always figure it's better to err on the side of caution. So better to leave a tiny little bit of the white daisy showing than to take the line off. Because the lines are very fine on this stamp set. And the line is what gives us the details, right? That gives us all the sketchy lines and the shading and all that stuff. So go as close as you can without trimming it all off. And I like to pivot my paper around, because my paper can pivot a lot easier than my hand holding the scissors. That is for sure. Of course, these micro tip scissors are like my favorite crafting room tool. If I had to pick one crafting tool and nothing else, it would be these scissors. So if I was ever lost on a desert island, this is what I would have. You could probably do a lot of stuff with this. You could probably even catch fish if you really tried. All right. So now we're going to go around the little seaweeds here. These are kind of a little bit easier to cut because they're just sort of in and out. But sometimes when they're easier to cut, you get a little sloppy, right? Because you're like, oh, I'm in the easy part now. And the trick is, if you were concerned that you had left bits of white where you didn't want bits of white, you could take the very edge of your black marker and you could go around the edges of your fussy cut item and you could just sort of sketch on a little bit black. And you wouldn't even do it on the surface. You would just kind of rub it on the side like you would if you were inking with your ink pad. Just use the edge, the flat edge of your black marker, and it would fill in those little white bits without, hopefully, covering up the colored portions. That's the word. So yeah. Are y'all getting seasick yet watching me spin this piece of paper around? It's worth it. It'll look cool in the end. Sometimes you have to do a little bit of patient fussy cutting for a cool effect. So, you know, we're getting there. We're almost done. Try to speed up a smidge. Hopefully I won't chop the coral off. And when you get so that, you know, there's a little extra part hanging that you've already cut that can get in the way of the spinning and the scissors, then you just snip to the edge and cut it off. There we go. One last piece. We're at the end. Hurrah! And y'all were like, ah, enough with the fussy cutting. But there's one more. Yes, Mary, they are the best scissors ever. They totally are. And, yeah, Karen's like, surprise, she's fussy cutting again. But I know you, Karen, you do fussy cutting too. We have the scissors of two different kinds. We have the non-stick micro tips, and then we just have the regular micro tips. And I've always had the non-stick because they have a double purpose in that you can cut through things that have adhesive. So if you've layered up two pieces of paper and you've got adhesive in between, or if you want to trim a piece of foam tape off, then your non-stick scissors go right through it and you can immediately go back to cutting paper. You don't get stuck with that residue or film of adhesive stickiness on your scissors. The only time I've ever had it happen was I was using a very poor kind of foam tape one time, and I got a little tiny bit of residue on there, and all I did was now you have to be careful because these are very sharp. I just took my finger and went like this, and it rubbed right off. I didn't even have to get my rub and remove eraser out, although that would have been safer, so as not to accidentally slice myself. The point on these scissors is very sharp. They come with a little cover so that you don't accidentally stab yourself. But it has been known to happen where I have poked myself, especially in little tight spaces when I'm trimming like this. But yeah, super awesome scissors. Can't say enough good things about them. And I've had two pairs of them. This is my second pair. And that's not because my first pair has worn out. It's because I couldn't find them one day. So because I love them so much, I had a backup pair. And so I got my backup pair out. And it's actually come in handy because Julia has been joining me in the craft room. And so now we can both have a pair and we don't have to keep passing the scissors back and forth, right? That's such a good idea, in my opinion. For those of you who don't like to share your scissors, you want them handy when you're in the middle of doing something. So there's the question right now. Are you a sharer when you're in your craft room? Do you share your scissors or your trimmer? Or is it everybody gets to bring their own scissors and trimmer? If you're sharing a crafty space. Julia's going to get a little crafty space set up in here. She says, my craft room has good vibes. So she wants to spend some time in here. I think mostly she just wants to use all my stuff. But that's okay too. Yes, if you accidentally cut off the ink line, you could draw it back on with a marker. Like one of the very fine journaling pens, you could try. It won't necessarily have the same look with this stamp set because this stamp set is kind of sketchy. I don't know how to describe it. It's not a big solid line. But definitely, if you have an accident, then, you make it work. Just add a little bit extra. Karen says she's happy to share. Sue says I don't have to share with anybody. Yep. Normally, I don't have to share, but my family has been using some of my stuff lately. And that is kind of exciting. Julia and Joshua were using my watercolor paints the other day, and they really liked them. So now I have some ideas for Christmas. And Julia had tried my water brush and really liked that, so I got her own. So now she has her own water brush. And the scissors, I might have to get her her own pair because I still need a backup. Just in case anything dramatic ever happens to my scissors, it would be a sad day if I had to craft without them. So I might just go ahead and get her her own pair so that I still have my backup pair. But it wouldn't be too hard to grab them if she kept them in the room. Julia has a tendency to walk away with scissors. I have about 6 pairs of scissors that are supposed to be in the kitchen. And most of the time when I go in the kitchen and I need a pair of scissors, there are no scissors there. And everybody knows that that's because Julia has walked away with the scissors. She was working on something. She needed scissors. She came and got them. And then the next time she's working on something, she comes and gets another pair. And then eventually there's no more pairs. But Joshua was kind enough and knows this problem exists that at Christmas time, he does leather work. And he made a little leather holder for a brand new pair of scissors. He bought me a pair of scissors. And he put magnets in the leather holder. And so the scissors slide down inside the holder and it magnets onto my fridge. And he has warned everybody that nobody is allowed to touch the scissors that are stuck to the fridge. Those are only for Mom, so that Mom always has a pair of scissors handy. All right, so there is our fussy cutting. I know that took a moment, but it's worth it in the end because it's going to look cool. Now we need to start assembling our card. So I've got my card base. One side has a bump in the pre-score and one has a dip. We're going to fold it with the bump side to the inside. And then I've got a piece of the mix-in paper. And this is that really nice white wood grain paper. It's got a nice figure in it. It's boards. And I thought it would look kind of nautical, kind of pretty with the idea of sort of either an aquarium or, you know, sometimes you can go to restaurants and things and they have aquariums in the walls, or even if they're at the seaside, you know, they've got it sort of part of the building is underwater and you can see through the windows into what's happening. So that was kind of the look I'm going for. So we've got this nice wood grain and I've cut it to the 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. That's the full size of the front of the card. Whenever I stick something that's full size, I take my fingertips and I have them right on the edge of the spine of my card. And I slide my paper up to it, make sure it's lining up top and bottom, and then just lay it down. And there we go. It almost always, fingers crossed, knock on wood, it almost always works out okay. So now I want to add what I'm going to put in behind my shaker card. And so I'm going to put a couple strips of my double-sided adhesive, but then I'm going to use my liquid glue because I want to make sure that it's really stuck down. And so I've, well, I could use liquid glass. Let me grab this. I'm going to use liquid glass later, but I'm just going to use my liquid glue. And what I've got here is a piece of the Capri cardstock. And I have cut it, and I'm going to be using the light side. So not the true color Capri side, the little bit lighter side. It looked just a little bit more naturally unnatural. Because it's, you know, it's a pretty wowza color to begin with. And I'm just going to stick that down. And I want to make sure that I get this back piece really good and stuck down onto my page. And then my little fishy is going in here. Look at that. My little fishy is just going to tuck right in there like that. So I'm going to need to trim a couple little things. So I'm going to trim just the littlest bit of his fin there. And I'm going to cut just the littlest bit of the coral after all that fussy cutting. Just so that it fits where I want it. And then I can go ahead and glue it down. I should have my tweezers for this so I can hold on to it. And I want to make sure that I glue this down really well. So here we are. We're going to do this trick that I love to show you. I'm going to put some of the glue on my hand, okay? And then all these little corally bits, I can just tap them into the glue, and it will just nicely coat just those little bits. Not too much, not too little. And so we can stick it down. And so now I got to make sure that I stick it down where I had it before when I was measuring. Measuring where I was putting all my little bits. And you really want to make sure you stick it down good, because this is going inside the shaker. And we want to be able to shake our things around and not have it stick to all those little corally bits. So for those of you who get the heebie-jeebies with the glue, I'm just wiping the excess glue off my hand. Some people can't stand the feel of glue on their hand. So imagine watching somebody craft with glue stuck to their hand would kind of give them the same sensation. So now I've got my shaker window, foams and acetates, and these are the round ones. And in the center of the foams, we have all the little squares of extra foam. So I like to use those little, so you can see I've been pillaging them. It's actually better to use all of those up before you use the ring. I used to always try and use the ring and then use up the little bits that were left over, but it's so much easier to get this off if you've already used that. So I can just take my backing off now. And I like to hold my fingers on either side. Look at my inky fingers. I was playing with my gel plate and ink earlier. And it wasn't working out, but it got me good and inky. So I like to hold it on the edge. And I also like to give it a second after I've peeled the backing off to let it relax, because we kind of pulled it out of its shape, right? By pulling the backing off. So give the acetate or the foam just a minute, and then you can go ahead and add it onto your backing piece. And I like to try and kind of stick into my finger, line it up and then stick it down so it goes in a nice circle. And now we've still got this other piece of backing on here. We're going to leave that on there for a minute. It's important. Leave that on there because we want to bring in our shaker elements, our little bits that are going in here. And these are the primary sprinkles. And I thought that these would look, they're not very natural looking, but I think they would kind of look like the little pebbles that you put in the bottom of your aquarium tank, right? So in keeping in mind that this could be sort of like a little aquarium in the wall of somewhere, we can go ahead and sprinkle those in. And you want to have a decent amount of them. Try to get them sort of in a single layer, because they'll kind of settle to the bottom and do their thing. So I think that's probably good. Put that one back in. And then out of our pack, we also need our acetates. So here we have one of the acetates, and these have a film on them. So they don't look very clear when you first look at them. And the trick is to figure out which side of the acetate that has the film on it, so you can peel it off. A lot of people have different ways of doing that. I usually just kind of rub because I think it's on this side. Yep. I can feel it. It's on there. Good. My goodness. This is an older pack. Maybe I am on the wrong side. You know what? Instead of fiddling, I'm going to grab another one. A lot of people use the rub and remove eraser, and I would do that, except for I can't find it. It's in my drawer. Let me see. Sometimes this. Nope. It's not going to do it. It's just going to make a mess. Here I am showing you how to do something, and I'm not doing it well. Okay. Go back to the way I always do it. I always just feel with my fingernail. There it is. And then you get the side, and this is the part my daughter likes. You go, and you peel it off. And that's always very exciting for her. And that just helps keep your acetate from getting too scratchy, right? So then if you want, you can take your anti-static pouch and just give it a little wipe, because if you were using sequins or something like that and you've just peeled that plastic off, you just created a bunch of static, and you go to put it down and all your sequins will jump up and try to stick to it, and then they'll all be like standing vertical and just making a mess. So this is the point where you need to peel the backing off, and I like to do it right at the very end. Make sure nothing's touching the little foamy bits, and then peel it off, and you want to hold your card down, because if you suddenly have the backing snag a little bit and your whole card jumps, all your little sequins go flying. So when I attach it, I hold it on either side like this so that my fingers can feel when I get to the foam and know that it's lining up where I want it. And then you just go ahead and stick it all the way down like that. And then all our little shaker bits, shake around in there. And you know what? I put too many in. You see that? Because they're not like sequins where they line up on top of each other. Our poor little fish. He's drowning in little bits. So what I can do is I can take my little tool here and I can do a little bit of surgery. Pardon me for a moment while I remove a few bits from here, because he's just drowning in there. Poor little fishy. So I'm going to take some of those out. There we go. I think that will be better. Yes, much better. Okay. And then we'll just kind of tuck our, there's a couple that are trying to escape through the edge. Have you ever done surgery on your shakers? I have done it. I've actually had it where I've had sequins that got so stuck they just wouldn't do anything. And then you just stick that back down there, you grab your liquid glass, and you give it a little lovin' with your liquid glass, just to make sure everything glues down. Put your little foamy back. There you go. There's always a solution. And now he's not drowning so badly. I was too generous. Then you with the with the thin cuts, you also get the one that creates a frame, because you've now got your foam sitting here. And so you can take this frame and you can add it on top, and it covers up the foam. And you have to use a glue that will stick to acetate. So liquid glass does that. And you can just do the same thing. Put your fingers on either side, line it up, and stick it down. And see, now you can't even see where I did surgery on my shaker. Stick it all down like that. So cute. And then we can also add in our extra little underwater, and we're going to stick it down here on the side. So we need a little bit of foam, and it's the regular size foam tape that you want to add here. So add a little bit of foam there, and a little bit of foam here. See how nicely those scissors cut that? And then we can also add a little bit of liquid glass on some of these bits that are going to be up on the acetate, like so. And stickeroony these down. Whoops. Just like that. Nice little decoration on the front of our shaker. And then we need to add our sentiment. And I'm almost hesitating now because we've already had the problem with the shaker. But I'm going to stamp directly on my card. Yeah, it's always a risk. I've got the sentiment here. The voice of the sea speaks to the soul. And I'm going to try to stamp it right on the front of my card. So I'm going to put it on the foam. Going to ink it up well. I've seasoned it. Everybody hold their breath for me. And we're going to stamp it right there. Oh boy. Who's taking bets on this? Who says living on the edge? Yay, there we go. Look at that. We were brave. We did it. So there we go. We've got our fun shaker card. We used our mix-in paper pack to create this beautiful wood grain in the background. Then we also used the light side of the Capri cardstock to create our water effect. We've got our fussy cut out little fish from the stamp of the month, and of course our extra little corally bits and shells on the front as well. And we used our circle shaker thin cuts to create this, along with our acetates and foams and all those little shakery primary sprinkles in there, creating our little aquarium effect. And our stamp of the month, the voice of the sea speaks to the soul. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Usually it goes a little bit smoother when you make a shaker card, but only when you're doing it live. Then it, always has to have an issue. I was too generous with my sprinkles. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed that. I would love to see you guys. If you've made a shaker card, post a photo in the comments, and we will see you soon. Hope you can join for Chat and Craft at 7 o'clock this evening. I hope you've noticed I posted that we're extending the deadline for the crop by 1 day. So the deadline for challenges and games and ordering and everything is 10 o'clock Monday night, Eastern Standard Time. And that's because of the whole Rogers fiasco, and a lot of people didn't have any access to the crop for a whole day. Sadness. And so we want to give everybody an extra little bit of time to get all their good crafting therapy in. I know it's a little bit harder on Mondays, especially if you've got to go to work. But, and then we'll do the prize draw on Tuesday instead of Monday. So hopefully I'll be posting everything about noon on Monday. All right. Have a wonderful afternoon, and hope to see you this evening. And let me know if I can help you with anything. Toodaloo. Bye.